What happens if you pour just 1 spoonful of vinegar into your gardenia, right at the base, right into the soil? Some gardeners swear it turns dull, yellowing leaves dark green again in days. Others say it can quietly kill the plant if you get it wrong. So which is it? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what vinegar does inside that pot, exactly how to use it safely, and exactly what mistake you need to avoid at all costs. Before we get into it, if you're someone who actually wants your plants to thrive instead of just survive, hit that subscribe button right now. I share simple, low-cost tricks like this one every single week, and trust me, this channel is about to become your favorite gardening shortcut. All right, let's get into the vinegar. Let's start with what's actually inside that bottle sitting in your kitchen cupboard, because understanding this is the key to everything else in this video. Regular household vinegar is, at its core, a diluted solution of acetic acid in water. Most white distilled vinegar you'll find on a grocery shelf sits around 5% acetic acid, with the remaining 95% simply being water. That's it. That's the whole formula. No secret blend, no mystery minerals, just acid and water. Now, acetic acid is what gives vinegar its sharp, sour smell and its bite. Chemically speaking, it's a weak organic acid, which means when it's mixed into soil or water, it releases hydrogen ions. And those hydrogen ions are the thing that actually matters here, because they're what lowers the pH of whatever they touch. Lower pH means more acidic. So when you pour vinegar into soil, you are in a very real and measurable way making that soil more acidic, at least for a little while. Here's something important to clear up right away, because a lot of gardening content out there gets this wrong. Vinegar is not a fertilizer. It does not contain nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, or any of the classic nutrients we usually talk about when we talk about plant food. If someone tells you vinegar feeds your gardenia the way compost or a liquid fertilizer does, that's not accurate. What vinegar actually does is completely different, and honestly, in the right situation, it can be just as powerful. Think of it less like food and more like a key. Your gardenia's soil might already be sitting on a buffet of nutrients, iron, manganese, magnesium, but if the soil pH drifts too far away from where gardenias like it, those nutrients become locked up. They're physically present in the soil, but the plant's roots simply can't absorb them efficiently. That's where the acetic acid in vinegar steps in. By nudging the soil pH down into a more acidic range, it can help unlock nutrients that were sitting there the whole time, just out of reach. There's a second thing happening too, and it's worth understanding. Vinegar's acidity can have a mild effect on certain minerals in the soil, helping convert some of them into forms that are easier for roots to take up, particularly iron. This matters enormously for gardenias, and we're going to get into exactly why in the next section. But the short version of this whole chemistry lesson is this: vinegar's real power isn't in what it adds to your soil, it's in what it unlocks that's already there. And that distinction is going to change how you think about using it. One more small detail worth mentioning: distilled white vinegar is essentially free of the coloring compounds, sugars, and residual solids you'd find in something like apple cider vinegar. That makes it more predictable and consistent for garden use, which is exactly why most experienced growers reach for plain white vinegar rather than the flavored or unfiltered kinds sitting in their pantry. So now that we understand what's inside that bottle, let's flip over to the plant itself, because gardenias are famous, or maybe infamous, for being picky. And once you understand what they're picky about, this whole vinegar trick is going to click into place. Gardenias are what's known as acid-loving plants. That's not a personality quirk, it's a biological requirement. These plants naturally thrive in soil with a pH somewhere between roughly 5 and 6, which is meaningfully more acidic than a lot of typical garden or potting soil, which often sits closer to neutral, around 7. When gardenia soil drifts too far toward neutral or alkaline, something frustrating happens. The leaves start turning pale, yellow, sometimes almost white, while the veins of the leaf often stay green. If you've ever seen a gardenia looking sickly and yellow despite watering it properly and giving it sunlight, this pH mismatch is very often the hidden culprit. Here's why this happens on a nutrient level. Gardenias have a particularly high demand for iron, and iron availability is extremely sensitive to soil pH. In alkaline or even just mildly neutral soil, iron molecules bind up with other elements and become essentially insoluble, meaning they physically cannot dissolve into a form the roots can absorb. The iron is there. It's just locked in a chemical handshake the plant can't break on its own. Iron plays a critical role in chlorophyll production, which is the pigment responsible for that deep, glossy green color gardenias are known for. No available iron means no chlorophyll production, which means pale, yellowing leaves, even in a plant that's otherwise healthy. Gardenias also need manganese and magnesium in meaningful amounts, and both of these follow a similar pattern. Their availability to the plant is heavily influenced by soil acidity. Magnesium specifically sits right at the center of the chlorophyll molecule itself, so a deficiency there compounds the yellowing problem even further. On top of that, gardenias benefit from a steady, moderate supply of nitrogen for healthy leafy growth and phosphorus and potassium to support strong root development and those famously fragrant white blooms. This is where the connection to vinegar becomes obvious. Gardenias don't necessarily have a shortage of iron, manganese, or magnesium sitting in their soil. What they often have is an accessibility problem caused by soil pH drifting too high. And that is precisely the mechanism vinegar's acetic acid can influence. By gently lowering soil pH back toward that ideal 5 to 6 range, vinegar can help reopen the door to nutrients the gardenia already has sitting right next to its roots. It's not adding new nutrients to the soil, it's restoring the acidic environment that lets the gardenia's roots do their job properly again. That's the entire logic behind this trick, and it's why it can work so well when soil pH is actually the underlying issue. Now let's talk honestly about what this can actually do for your gardenia, and then, just as importantly, where it can go seriously wrong, because this is the part most videos skip over. Used correctly in the right amount at the right frequency, a small diluted vinegar application can genuinely help nudge alkaline soil back into the acidic range gardenias crave. Growers who use this method carefully often report leaves regaining a richer green color over time, more vigorous new growth, and healthier bud formation, simply because the plant's roots can finally access the iron and magnesium that were previously locked away. For gardenias struggling specifically because of a pH problem, not a watering problem, not a light problem, this can be a genuinely useful, low-cost tool. But here's the warning, and I want you to actually hear this part. Vinegar is acid. Undiluted or used too frequently or poured on too heavily, it doesn't unlock nutrients, it starts attacking the fine root hairs of the plant, essentially chemically burning them. Soil that gets pushed too acidic, too fast, becomes hostile to the beneficial microbes that gardenias depend on for long-term soil health. You can end up with scorched roots, wilting foliage, and a plant that declines rapidly rather than one that bounces back. This is not a more is better situation. This is a precision tool, not a bucket and pour solution. The exact same substance that can revive a struggling gardenia can just as easily finish one off if you get careless with the amount or the frequency. So let's make sure that never happens to you with an exact method. Here is exactly how to do this safely, step by step. First, gather what you need. Plain white distilled vinegar, a clean measuring spoon, a 1 liter or 1 quart container of room temperature water, and a watering can with a narrow spout for controlled pouring. Second, prepare your dilution. Add just 1 tablespoon of white vinegar into that full liter of water. Stir it thoroughly so the acid is evenly distributed throughout the water rather than concentrated in one spot. This is a mild, diluted solution. Remember, we're nudging soil chemistry gently, not blasting it. Third, check your gardenia's soil moisture before applying anything. Never apply this solution to bone-dry soil, and never apply it to soil that's already waterlogged. Ideally, water your gardenia normally first with plain water, wait about a day, and then apply the diluted vinegar solution to soil that's slightly moist, not soggy and not dry. Fourth, pour the solution slowly and evenly around the base of the plant, staying a few inches away from the main stem itself to avoid direct acid contact with the woody base. Move the watering can in a slow circle around the drip line. That's the area beneath the outer edge of the leaves, so the solution reaches the active feeder roots rather than just pooling in one spot. Fifth, after applying the diluted vinegar solution, don't add any additional plain water on top that same day. Let the soil absorb the solution naturally and let the plant respond before you water again on your normal schedule. Sixth, observe the plant over the following 1 to 2 weeks before deciding whether to repeat the process. Patience here is everything. This is a slow correction, not an instant fix. That's the entire method, simple, controlled, and precise, which is exactly what a sensitive plant like a gardenia demands. Now let's talk timing, because when you do this matters just as much as how you do it. There are clear situations where you should not use this vinegar trick at all. Avoid applying it during the coldest months when your gardenia is dormant and not actively growing, since the plant isn't in a state to make use of any nutrient availability changes during that period. Avoid applying it to a gardenia that's already stressed, wilting, freshly repotted, or recovering from pest damage. Introducing any kind of acid stress on top of existing stress can push a struggling plant over the edge. Avoid applying it during periods of heavy rainfall or when soil is already saturated, since the vinegar solution needs to interact with the soil rather than get instantly diluted and washed straight through the pot. And avoid applying it if you haven't actually confirmed your gardenia is showing signs of a pH-related problem in the first place, like that telltale yellowing between green leaf veins. If the plant looks healthy already, there's no reason to intervene. The ideal time to apply this is during the plant's active growing season, typically spring through the warmer part of summer, when the gardenia is putting out new leaves and actively taking up water and nutrients through its roots. Morning application is best, giving the plant a full day of light and warmth to respond, rather than sitting in cool, damp soil overnight. As for frequency, this is not a weekly ritual. Apply this diluted solution no more than once every 3 to 4 weeks at most, and only continue if you're actually seeing the soil and plant respond positively. If new growth looks healthy and green, you can stop entirely and simply monitor. Overdoing the frequency is, without question, the single most common way this trick backfires on well-meaning gardeners. So, what should you actually expect to see and when? In the first few days after application, don't expect dramatic change. Soil chemistry shifts gradually, not overnight, and that's completely normal. Somewhere around the 1 to 2 week mark, if soil pH was genuinely the underlying issue, you'll typically start noticing the first subtle signs, new leaf growth emerging with a slightly deeper, richer green color compared to the older, paler leaves around it. By around the 3 to 4 week mark, with proper care and one additional careful application if needed, many gardeners report a noticeably more vibrant plant overall, that dull yellowish cast fading from the foliage, new leaves coming in fuller and greener, and in some cases, healthier bud development leading into bloom season. Picture your gardenia's newest leaves shifting from that washed-out pale look to a glossy deep emerald green, standing out clearly against the older growth. That visual contrast is usually the clearest sign the trick is genuinely working, rather than the plant just naturally producing new leaves anyway. Keep in mind, results vary depending on how far off your soil pH actually was to begin with, your climate, and your gardenia's overall health going into this. This isn't an instant miracle fix, it's a gradual chemical correction, and gradual is exactly how it should be for a plant this sensitive. And there you have it, the real science behind why a single tablespoon of vinegar, diluted the right way and used at the right time, can genuinely help a struggling gardenia find its glorious green color again. But now you know both sides of the story, the benefit and the risk, so you can use this trick with real confidence instead of just guessing. If this video helped you understand your gardenia a little better, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share it with another gardener who's been fighting yellow leaves. I've got a lot more simple, science-backed garden tricks coming your way, so I'll see you in the next one.